Good afternoon and welcome, and thank you everybody so much for coming today. First, I want to thank the board members that are on the call. So I'm going to kind of scroll down to see who I notice. Of course, we have Mike Fischer, who is our current board president, and you'll hear from him in a little bit. And it looks like Chad Connor is here. So thank you, Mike and Chad, for being here. And then we also wanted to introduce you to our new development and outreach director, Matt Elmore. Matt, you want to say a few things so they can see your face?
Yes, hello. Nice to kind of meet everybody. I'm definitely looking forward to getting back to a time where I can meet everybody in person as well. But hopefully you'll see me around soon.
Yeah, so I'm really excited to have Matt on board. For those that have been around a while, they know that I've been doing all the fundraising with the board, and having somebody on with us who knows what they're doing from a fundraising perspective has been really instrumental. We have a lot of big goals about this year, so you'll hear about that later. But Matt not only has fundraising experience, but has experience running nonprofits. And so his skill set is just perfect for launching us into the next year. So we're really excited to have him on board. For those that don't know, my name is Betsy Reznicek, and I'm the founder and executive director here at Home Sweet Home. We do have a mixture of folks on tonight who are very familiar and have been with the organization since we started 5 years ago, but there's also a number of folks who are completely new to Home Sweet Home. So you'll hear a little bit of mix of information. If you have any questions, feel free to type them into the notes. You can also send Matt an individual message if you want, and we'll talk about questions at the end, or if they pop up earlier, I'm happy to address them. First and foremost, our mission is to give families a sense of pride in their lives to improve the quality of their lives by providing furniture and household items. And as our board president, Mike Fischer, once said, we really have our vision is to give people hope and dignity in their lives. We just happen to do that through furniture. And so a little bit about how Home Sweet Home started, and I do want to make a special call out to Sarah Lovegreen, who is on this call, because Sarah was one of the founding board members that we originally had. So Sarah reached out to me at some point and said, I hear you talking about this furniture thing. Can I come learn more? So in 2015, in April, I had been having conversations with people, and we realized that there was a gap missing in services in St. Louis. There were agencies that were doing great work at providing housing and services and mental health care, but to be able to give people a home was one thing. To be able to make it so that they could be successful in their home was an entirely different thing. And so being able to fill this gap of providing furniture and household items to the families that other people are already having a relationship with, I just kind of said one day, it's like somebody should do this furniture thing, but for all of the organizations. So be careful what you say sometimes, because it can come true. So that was started in April of 2015. And then by October of that same year, we opened up our first warehouse down on Locust Street, down in Midtown. So in these first 5 years, we started off very small. It was an all volunteer run organization. And it didn't take long for us to realize that there was a huge need for this service, but there was also a lot of energy and excitement and resources available to pull this off. So that we knew that there was a lot of stuff coming in. We knew very quickly that there were a lot of people that wanted to help. And so I think it took about 9 months for us to hire our first movers. Prior to that, it was me and a friend picking up furniture donations in a pickup truck. You don't want to see that anymore. And then we would use some of the volunteers actually that are on here to help us deliver furniture to families. So hiring those first movers was that first step to really be able to try to meet the need. And as most of you know, it kind of grew very quickly out of control from there. We were in that building for 2 years and then needed to find a bigger space. So now we are in a 10,000 square foot warehouse in Brentwood. And we have 4 trucks that are running every single day. So obviously with COVID, the whole world was kind of shattered and shook to its knees. And a lot of businesses and nonprofits had to figure out how they were going to navigate this new world. And for Home Sweet Home, we were no different. I'll be honest, there were some times that were really scary and really, we were unsure about how are we going to do this? How do we keep people safe? How do we make sure our clients stay safe? And everybody really pulled together to be able to not just make 2020 so that we got through it, but we as an organization really flourished. So some of the things that happened in 2020 for us is we were able to add 2 trucks to our fleet. One was already kind of planned and in our budget, thanks to the St. Louis Jefferson Waste District. It's essentially a recycling grant. So we are keeping tons of items out of the landfill. And so in turn, the state of Missouri actually has funds available for doing that. That allowed us to get truck number 3. And then we were able to secure truck number 4 through some CARES funding, actually, in order to step up our services that were slowed down due to COVID. So adding 2 trucks meant that now we needed to look at being able to serve more clients, which is our entire mission, is to be able to serve as many families as possible. So we slowly began to increase the number of partner agencies that we were working with. I think at the time we were about 22 agencies. Now we're up to 40 partner agencies. So those are all nonprofits in the area that have an ongoing case manager relationship with their families that make those referrals to us. Some other things that we did during COVID is, instead of pausing like some organizations suggested we do in terms of planning for the next 3 to 5 years, we use this as an opportunity for our board to really do some strategic planning. So some people thought that this was not necessarily the best time to think about 3 years out, but we said, you know what, we have the time, we have the right people on the board to do this planning, and we need to figure out where we go next, for the very simple fact of we literally have 2 more years on our lease in our current building, right? So we have to figure out what is the next plan for Home Sweet Home. So a volunteer from Worldwide Technology was able to lead our board through a strategic planning process. So now we have a 4-point plan, strategic plan for the next 3 years. And then, of course, the United Way opened up its funding opportunities. And thanks to one of our board members, Berta, who helped us apply, we are now one of the new United Way safety net partner organizations. So we're really excited about that. Some of the challenges that came up, we could talk about the challenges. We know what they were. But what we did to kind of counteract some of the challenges were that we not only networked with other furniture banks around the country, but we led some of those discussions. So our staff got together with some of the staff from other furniture banks, and we just kind of said, okay, we're all in this really scared place of how do you open a nonprofit back up in a global pandemic and keep everybody safe. And so we did a lot of planning and held Zooms where there were 40 to 50 people trying to learn from each other and figure out what everybody's doing and figure out best practices as furniture banks to move forward. So we not only participated, but kind of led some of those sessions. Our staff and board and volunteers really worked strategically when it came back to opening. Like most of St. Louis County, we were closed for about 10 weeks. So we, as everything else that we do is really collaborative, we pulled together our staff, board, and volunteers to figure out, okay, how do we open and how do we do it safely? And so we were able to come up with a really solid opening plan. That was really scary at first, right? But I think as we've learned a lot more about COVID, we've also learned about how to trust each other as a staff and volunteers. And we keep a lot of open communication. Every morning, one example, it's like every morning we have just a quick huddle of everybody that's at the warehouse to talk about what's happening this today, what clients are we serving, what concerns are we, what do we need? And that's always something that we look to address. The other really cool thing that we were able to add, thanks to the CARES funding, was a hospital grade UV light. We actually ended up needing to purchase a 5th truck that sits at our loading dock. And before this UV light, we actually would quarantine all the items for 1 week, which was not the best. It was a huge mess to just try to work around it. Would pile up 10 feet tall. Now we don't have to do that. As new items get donated to us, we can put them in this light box, turn on the light, and hopefully that takes care of any coronavirus that might be left on items. And the other thing that we really needed to do as we were figuring out how to reopen was to think about, as much as we needed to keep the dignity and pride alive in our mission and serving our clients, we knew that we could not have clients come to our building. It was a risk for their health and for our team. And so we thought, okay, well, we still need to keep that part of it. So how do we do that? And our team was really innovative in trying to use free resources that already existed to create an online shopping process for our families. So this was really interesting. Just like you and I like to shop from our homes, we wanted to provide that same kind of service for our families. So now every item that gets brought into our warehouse after it goes into the UV light box, of course, then gets photographed, put onto a website, and then our case managers spend a lot of time now walking them through that website, talking about what their needs are, talking about what their space is like. The same thing we do when they would come in person. Now we just unfortunately do that with our team. We actually needed to expand our team in order to do that, our staff in order to do that, because it is quite a time-consuming process. But we felt that it really stayed true to our mission to give people dignity and pride in their lives. So because this is a little bit of a report on our annual report and our numbers of the things that we accomplished last year, we just kind of wanted to do a quick run through of the numbers. We were able to serve more than 550 families, which is roughly exactly 1,262 individuals. So about a fourth of the individuals that we serve are children. That number, interestingly, has stayed true from the time that we started this mission. 1 out of every 4 people that we serve are kids. Also 1 out of every 4 that we serve are military veterans. We've kept more than 500 tons of items out of the landfill. Actually, Deb Frank, who's on this call, helps us figure out ways to do that better every single day. So thank you, Deb, for doing that. And we distributed more than 40,000 items. And so for those that might not know or may never have been in our warehouse, this could include items like a couch or kitchen table, but it also could mean that it's a fork, spoon, knives, bath towels, lamps, wall art. So we're talking little items as well as big items. And then we also had more than 150 volunteers that gave thousands of hours of their time. And so we had volunteers from the get-go that as long as we followed the protocols that we all established, felt safe coming in the warehouse, and we're grateful for them. But we're also grateful for all the volunteers that spent time. We had volunteers that do data entry, that pick up sheets and towels from our warehouse, take them back to their house to full. They bring them back all ready for our families. So there is a lot of moving pieces every single day to serve this many families at one time. So what do our clients look like? More than 60% of them live in St. Louis City. And again, that's also kind of a number that stays relatively even in the last 5 years. The rest live in St. Louis County. And 56% of our families are leaving homelessness. And I always kind of also phrase it as starting over. So that could be somebody, a military veteran that's coming through St. Patrick's Center. It could also include somebody that's coming out of prison and living in a residential facility for a year and then moving out on their own. Or it could be a family that's moving out of a domestic violence shelter. The rest of our families, I always use the example of St. Louis Crisis Nursery. The families are being referred to us because they have a need for services, but they're not necessarily starting over. They may have even lived in a home for a really long time, and they may even have a lot of stuff, but it may not be the right things, right? They don't have a bed to sleep in, or maybe there's one bed for several children. They don't necessarily have a couch, but maybe they have a kitchen table. And so those families are being referred to us because they just often have generational poverty that they're working through. And a lot of our clients have mental health issues. So that's something that we try to educate our staff and our volunteers about. And 90% of our families make less than $18,000 a year. So how did we do all this? Amazing staff, board, and volunteers. And I always use that word team to talk about all of those as a whole. This is our board list from last year, so from 2020. And again, this is the group that really worked to put together that strategic plan. I'll also say, I told Matt, this is the part where I cry. There could not have been a better board when the executive director has to figure out how to navigate a global pandemic. The board was super helpful at doing whatever they needed to support me as a person, to support our staff, and to support our mission. So kudos to you all. And then our staff, in order to do these really big goals, especially with less volunteers in the warehouse for 2020, we had to increase the number of staff. So with 4 trucks, you have at least 8 people that are on those trucks every single day. But we also, as you know, you met Matt, we added a development and a marketing director. We also moved our case manager. If you've ever met Sean, he used to be our case manager. He is now our director of operations. So somebody that is really making sure that that warehouse is running without me always having to be a part of it. This has been a huge change. And I trust Sean implicitly when he's out there. And then the other key factor for us has really been the addition of a warehouse coordinator. So before, with somebody, when somebody would drop things off at the loading dock, somebody wants to drop off donations, it would literally be like who's ever standing closest would be the person to help them unload their car or give them a tax receipt. Now we have a dedicated person. It's typically Darius, who's super friendly and outgoing and so energetic. And Darius can help people unload their car, but at the same time, he's putting those items in the UV light. He's taking the items that the case manager has just tagged because they've been shopped, and he's grabbing those items and he's moving them over. He's pulling beds down from the bed rack. So Darius literally keeps all the magical pieces moving at once, and it really is a huge game of musical chairs. So we're really grateful to have this giant team of 18 that make this magic happen every day. So Mike is our board president, and he's going to tell you a little bit more about the financials.
Thanks, Betsy. On behalf of the board, I want to thank you for your support and generosity to Home Sweet Home. We can't do it without you. I think you'll see this when we go through this slide. The story Betsy told about Sarah and 2015 and kicking off this dream of Home Sweet Home. They never thought that 5 years later it'd be $1 million operation. I think that would have probably blown their mind. But you can see on the left that we finished with revenue in 2020, just under $1 million. And this was in the COVID year, just remarkable results in a very difficult year. You can see our expenses were under control, so we had a net gain of $50,000. And you should know that for every dollar you contribute, 90 cents goes directly to the programs and services that serve the mission. Only 10% is for administrative, and that's a pretty good benchmark. The benchmark is about 80%. So we're putting more dollars to the mission than the average organization. Where does the money come from? Well, big part comes from people like you, our individual givers. We have a broad range of individual givers, and they're very generous and have been very faithful. And it's an important cog in our ability to keep the operation running. Corporate giving is about 15%, and we have a goal to double that this year, and we'll talk about that in the next slide. Program fees is another one I'd like to point out. That's the fees that the agencies, partner agencies, pay us to service their clients, and that's only 5% of what we get. So The services can't happen without, we just can't make it happen without the individual givers. And grants, about a quarter of what we get. And that's great. We had a great year with grants, but you can't count on it every year. And so we really need to broaden our corporate giving and continue strong with our individual giving so that we've got a good balance and diversification of our funds. You can see on the bottom that we have a goal of increasing revenue for 30% this year. That's a pretty aggressive goal, but the need is out there, and this need is even more intense today with what's going on with COVID and people being behind in their rent and threat of losing their place, and more people getting into the homeless ranks, and it's going to be continued demand. So we've got a 30% growth and because of demand, and we won't have 10 weeks off of COVID like we did this last year. So thank you again for your support, and where you can help us is with our goal of doubling our corporate donations, is if you know anybody in your network that is a member of a corporation that has a decision-making role, or know somebody who's involved with the philanthropic arm of the corporation, we just love a warm introduction. And Betsy or Matt or I will take any meeting we can get to try to get somebody who show interest in supporting Home Sweet Home, because we have plans to grow even more in the future because the demand is out there.
Matthew?
Yes, I mean, all in all, just echoing everything that Betsy and Mike have said. I, as Betsy kind of briefly mentioned, I'm a military spouse, so I've moved quite a bit over the last 10 years or so, and I've been in multiple states, multiple organizations, and I have never even seen an organization with a mission as impactful as this. And I've not had the opportunity to work with a mission where everybody, the donors, volunteers, board members, everyone, staff involved, 100% cared about the mission and was passionate about it and the work that this organization does. And that's been exciting and refreshing. And I am so excited to be a part of that. But like I mentioned, we have big goals for this year, over 1,200 families. That's amazing. That's fantastic. And those 3 simple ways that you can help sometimes might seem daunting or may seem like, I don't know how I could fit into one of those, but, leveraging your networks and the people even if that's just simply mentioning us to somebody and what we do. I talk with Betsy a lot about how it's so incredible that anyone who literally learns about us falls in love with us. And I think there's a reason for that. And that's because of the work that we do. And if there's any way that you would like to help, definitely reach out and let us know. And we would love to plug you in. And that means more than just money. Of course, if you want to do the money part, definitely let me know. We'll still talk about that. But if there are other opportunities and other ways that you would love to help us out too, let us know. And we'd love to use you to help our families even more.
So that kind of wraps up our report end. And feel free, if you have any questions, you can unmute yourself or send them to Matt. Matt, has anyone sent you any questions?
I have one really good question. So someone asked if we were looking at expanding our programs and services outside of just St. Louis County.
Yes, that is a terrific question. So that's exactly what we're looking to answer in our strategic plan. I mentioned that the strategic plan has 4 pillars, and the first one of those includes a needs assessment. So we've actually written a grant and are hoping to partner with a consultant. It's actually the same consultant that helped the United Way do their planning. And that consultant is going to help us identify what is the need in the St. Louis community outside of St. Louis City and County for our services. So we know that there is a need here in St. Louis City and County. We assume there's a need in St. Clair County, Illinois, or Jefferson County, or St. Charles County, Missouri, but we don't necessarily know what those tangible numbers are. And so we wanted to enlist a professional to help us figure that out. So we just don't want to spread willy-nilly just to expand our services. we want to be really strategic about it. So that first pillar is a needs assessment to figure that out. And so that's something that we will actually have more information on, pending that we get this grant and she starts the work. I think that would happen in May, and then she would finish that report around October, November. So we would know more then. The other piece of that needs assessment is actually to figure out how do we operate better within the warehouse and the structure that we already have. So we're also really excited about that. So, bringing in some professionals to help us figure out, okay, what are we doing? How can we do it faster, stronger, better, smarter? So I'm super excited about that. I know Sean is looking forward to that opportunity as well. And just to dive in just a minute on the strategic plan too, the second pillar of that is, of course, fundraising. So we can't do any of this without funds. So Matt has the second pillar of fundraising. The third pillar is to become, let's see if I get this right, to become a nonprofit employer of choice. So what that is going to identify is how do we make sure that we're providing, Sarah, you'll love to hear this, how do we make sure that we're providing benefits to our staff, and that make sure that they're not just on par to what other nonprofits or corporations are doing, but that we're exceeding expectations and making this a place that people want to navigate to. So we get the best of the best possible employees that St. Louis region has to offer. But the other part to that is to also address training on all levels from board, staff, and volunteers, and also to look at diversity, equity, and inclusion, again, on all three levels. So then the fourth pillar is to become the nonprofit of choice in the St. Louis region, not for staff necessarily, but for donors, for volunteers, for corporations, for anybody that says, hey, do you know a nonprofit that's really great, that's doing good work? We want to be one of those first organizations that people think about. And so how do we get there? And so we are actually forming a stakeholder council of volunteers, donors, et cetera, that will, it also include partner agencies. So we have some partner agencies in that group as well, so that we can ensure that we are providing the best possible service for our families, but also that we are providing the best volunteer opportunities, the best board membership opportunities, the best opportunities for partnering in the community. So kind of all around being the best of the best. So that's kind of an overview of our strategic plan. Sheree had a really great question. What is CARES funding? So part of the government funding for COVID relief is CARES funding. So CARES funding came through St. Louis City and through St. Louis County and through the state of Missouri for homeless services that either are serving people due to COVID to help preventing people from losing their homes during COVID, or whose services were slowed down because of COVID. And so we were able to apply through St. Louis County and we're able to receive $80,000 for services. So that actually allowed us to help get that the fourth track. That's what the CARES funding is. That's a good question. Stephanie, you have a question?
I do, and thank you for having me. Chad Connor invited me to attend today. Great. And I just wanted to, I love the organization, everything that you represent. I also work at Wells Fargo, which is how I met Chad, it feels like a decade ago, but wanted to make sure that the group has gotten embedded in the Wells Fargo system, because there are new grant opportunities where, our team members can volunteer with your organization and then also get funds because of their volunteer work to send to you. Same thing with donations. So it's really great to make sure that, if you're not, to be on that list. And I need to check. I didn't get enough time to do enough homework, except for, back in the day, Chad used to talk about this ad nauseum when we catch up with that lunch, but those days are over. So I'm happy to be here and want to make sure that you get as much bang for your buck as possible, because every dollar, every hour, every commitment from a team member or network that is massive could really be of benefit. So I'm on board for whatever you need. And I want to make sure that I can like escalate it for you as well.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Stephanie. We'll definitely work with Chad, and I don't know if you know Jennifer Elin as well.
Oh yeah.
Fargo in place. So yeah, we look forward to that. We definitely have a lot of group and individual volunteer opportunities. It's a lot of fun to have volunteers from corporate groups come down because sometimes we'll pre-COVID world had them help deliver furniture. And it was always a great opportunity for them to really see and touch the mission and get to explore parts of the city they may never have been in,
Right.
and really see the mission hands-on. So Chad, make sure we're definitely connected. Thank you,
and
Stephanie.
it turns into dollars. I think that's one of the great things about working at Wells Fargo is that they're saying, hey, if you committed your time to this organization, we want to provide them with a grant on our behalf.
That's
so,
terrific.
you know, work turns into money, which we all know that at the end of the day, but it's a great benefit. So yeah, Chad's your guy. And if I can't stay on long, I just want to let you know, I'm gonna get more information and do what you need me to do to be a part. So thank you.
Thank you. That's awesome. Great. Any other questions for the evening? All right. Well, thank you again so much for everybody for attending. We will probably follow up with folks to see if you have any questions or are looking for other ways to get involved. And for those who have been involved for a long time, again, I try not to cry because you guys have sustained us this whole entire time. So thank you for doing that. I appreciate everybody's time and have a lovely evening.